Alrighty, so we're going to be starting an animation tutorial, right? We're going to be going from the basics. I already have videos similar to this, but I want to get everything in one, We're going to be beginning with an idea, right? Like, what is your animation going to be, okay? Once you have that, start recording reference. Even the best people do it, right? These are world-class animators, and you get so much tiny movement right there. You see that's that shake of the head, right? You get so much detail in there that you might otherwise miss. So it's very important that you guys work from reference, and this tutorial is going to be geared for that. So you don't have to show anyone your reference ever. These people are very brave for putting it out there. But honestly, when you're in the animation industry, no one cares about like being cringe when you're gathering reference. It's for your own artistic development, okay? So first, get your reference. Then, once you have your reference, get it onto your computer somehow, probably because you probably recorded from a cell phone, right? And our goal is to get to the rough or blocking stage, right? If you observe the animation, now this one's maybe not the best example because it's very well developed. Like this animator is very skilled, and they have a lot of breakdowns in their blocking stage as well. But we're looking for key poses for right now. But look at that. See how that's all. See how he's moving like in a little bit of a in a stilted way. It might be hard to see with video compression and all that, but this is actually stepped tangents, if you're familiar with stepped tangents. I'll be going into that in a little bit, but yeah, he's working in stepped tangents, and he's still able to make this as smooth as it looks, right? Like, see how, boom, from just these two frames right here, I'm doing period and comma to advance a frame and go back. But look at that. So that is stepped tangents right there. But there's just so many poses that they've worked into the performance that look so good, Okay, so that is what our blocking phase is going to be looking like. Now, again, this is probably going to be more advanced and developed than what your blocking phase is going to look like. I like to kind of just get the rough poses in, and then I work with breakdowns. And during the breakdowns is when I move to splines, which you can see down there. And then my polish. I kind of wish that they had a couple more in here. I wish they had blocking, or like rough, and then breakdowns, and then spline polish. I wish that it was those in here, but I don't know. I feel like those definitions are a little bit nebulous. Everyone has their own interpretation. So next up, grab a rig, right? We're gonna be working in Maya. And if you go to animationmethods.com, they have a lot of really good rigs on here. This whole list, fantastic. Monkey has a bit of a weird neck. Circuit Hero's thin torso, it makes it hard to get appealing poses. Spider-Verse requires an outside plugin for Maya. Stitch, avoid Stitch because Stitch's legs are really small and that can be annoying to animate your first time out. Psylocke's shoulder is messed up. Mary is a really nice rig, so is Ray, but they have a little bit of extra controls that, like, if you're not used to animating, you're going to be confused when you see it. Mikey's eyes are messed up. So you have to fix that. It's a little bit hard to fix it though. You have to go into the Hypershade editor to find the shader for his eyes and then just make it a default like black pupil shader. Thep is really good. Ninja's really good. Don't do a quadruped for your first time out animating. And then let's see any other red flags in here. Osri is really good, but they're down. If you're part of my class, you can download this rig from Canvas. It's on there. Link is good. I think they took them down though. But if you use one of these, because I see them around online a lot, their controls, the waist control is on the back of like the character, so it's a really weird placement for that control. But other than that, it's a great rig. Liger's good. I wouldn't use either of these. Both of the I think both of the elbows are messed up. They won't point where you're facing, like where that pull vector's facing in all scenarios. So that can be a huge problem if you're trying to do like an elbow contact on a table, you know. Spider Grin's a great rig right there. So if you want to use that one, that's a fantastic one. She does have like really skinny legs though, so it can be kind of hard to get some nice posing. And sometimes her like forearms look weird for the same reason. It's just a little bit like a bunch of sticks, you know. So it can be kind of difficult to get some appealing posing with that character. But like other than that, great for I've had a lot of students do like nice graceful movements, right? So once you get your model figured out, like which one you're gonna use, I'm gonna use Osri. I think that's a fantastic rig. It will come to you whatever you download. It's gonna come as a zip file, a .zip or a .rar. If you're on PC, you can use WinRAR to unzip those or uncompress those. You need to uncompress them first. So like to uncompress any downloaded thing, you just right click it, and if you have WinRAR, you can just go to WinRAR and then extract to, and then it'll give you this folder. See that? So we have, let me go to my course materials folder, and Osri, once you unzip, Osri comes like this, right? So put that in your Maya folder, whatever project folder you're working on, and make sure that it's in there and it doesn't move its location. The reason we're going to be that I'm so detailed with that is because if we go in and file, create reference, I want us to be using the reference pipeline. So you need to create a reference to that character. So let me find desktop, course materials, Osri, and let's go to files of type. Let's do Maya scenes, and then you can see Osri's right there because she's a .ma. Let's reference that character in. And I'm hoping that her scale doesn't match this world. I haven't tried her out in this scene. Oh, it actually might match this scene decently. Actually, it's a little bit small. It feels a little bit small there. But there's our rig, right? Now, what happened was this character, if we open up our reference editor, it is pointing to this location. So see how it's like my hard drive? If you go to another computer and you open up this file, it's gonna be like, hey, where is this rig? Like, I don't see it. Like, what are you looking for, right? So this is an issue that it's like the resolved name is, or the unresolved name is like that, because that means I'm not using my my project settings, right? So if you have a project folder in Maya, what you can do is file, set project, then reference your character in, and it will keep that connection as long as you've set the project each time, okay? That is the strength of the reference pipeline. You'll know that, you'll notice that like some of her icons look a little bit different in the outliner, right? See this little diamond? That is a ref node. So she is not actually in this file, right? This is just a pointer to the actual rig. And one, it can be a little bit restricting if you're trying to do things like changing skin weights, editing the source file, right? But this is what you're going to be using in any sort of studio. A studio is going to be having tech artists making constant updates to the rig, right? Making changes, and then you need to go into work and get those changes in case they add like a new prop to the rig, if they add a new hair system, if they add new face controls, you know, you need the latest version, right? So use the reference pipeline and get acquainted with it. If you're just doing this for like student work, then you can just work on the rig by itself. You can just like file, import the .ma into your scene. But like, don't get used to that. Don't get used to that. And if you ever open up the file and it's looking for that path, you'll just have to navigate to the Osri rig again, you know, or whatever rig you're using. So we have this rig. Now let's go over some basics for controlling a character. You'll note, let's just go from bottom to top, okay? So we have feet, okay? Your legs are most likely going to be in IK to begin with, right? So as you're moving these around, you'll notice that the knee solves its position, right? That's an IK control, right? It appears as though Osri's IK-FK switch is on the shape itself, which is very helpful. But if it's not, usually it's a floating control either at the hip or like around the ankle somewhere, and you'll see like IK-FK, and then you can swap to FK from there. So so Osri also has FK legs in case you want to rotate like that. The only time that I really switch to FK for legs is if I am doing like a flip or something. If I'm doing like something where they're going to be in the air for an extended amount of time, or if they're like sitting on like a high surface and they're swinging their legs, their feet, then I would use FK for that as well. Otherwise, I'm going to use IK the majority of the time. Okay, so that's the feet and how to just move the basics around. But for stuff like how to raise the foot up, it's very common for the foot control to have a foot roll channel that you can change. You can change any of these by left clicking on the name and then middle click dragging in your scene. So you can get a lot of different posability there. Osri also has an extra little roll control here, which raises the foot like that, right? So that's really nice. If your rig has these controls and has translate as listed channels in here, don't freaking move those, okay? Don't move those. The way you control the foot is with the foot control, this one, right? The main control for that foot. Any other control that lets you move around is gonna offset from that main control. So then your main control would be like over here, but then your foot is over there. That's gonna be a huge problem. Don't freaking do that, dude. It's gonna really annoy your scene. Like, it's gonna be annoying to fix in your scene, okay? So leave the feet inside the main foot controls. The same goes for if you have two waist controls in here, right? Now Osri might, no, she just has hip swing controls. Very good, very good. So Osri has really limited the controls that you can use in a very good way. I see a lot of students really mess up their controls accidentally. But yeah, so if you have two waists, only move the outside waist. The inside waist is if you just need to do like some very specific corrective movements, or if you need like an extra pivot, if you're doing something like a pirouette or something like a jump like that needs like an extra rotation. It's to get around gimbal lock stuff. So for you guys though, just work with the main waist control. Okay. Now when you're posing the torso and stuff, try to select all of the controls at once and rotate them all at once. That way you get a nice distributive twist on that spine right there. You want it to be going across all the controls. I feel like I made up the word distributive. I'm saying that one wrong, but this one, like all these torso controls right there, they work together to make that pose. So whenever I'm posing that torso, I'm selecting all at once and then rotating to get a nice even twist throughout. Okay, so that's how you should work with your spines, and pose the waists first. That's controlling the entire location of the character. If you select your spines and then move those, oh, see, dude, once again, the Osri rig is incredible for when you're starting out, or just incredible in general, because they've locked down the translate. They don't want you translating that FK spine. Okay, now if it's an IK spine, you can do a little bit of that, but you still want to be careful because like you can make some very unnatural spine shapes. Okay, so posing the arm here, this is an FK arm, right? So you start from the shoulder and you rotate it. You go from the elbow and you rotate that as well. Now when you're rotating that elbow, see, even Osri has not made this one infallible, because I can just straight up go in here and break her arm, right? Like this would just absolutely break someone's arm. Like if you do this and then, right? Like that is a broken arm. So when you're animating with FK, make sure you're only rotating on one axis. Some rigs it's like Y, some rigs it's rotate Z, some it's X. It's whatever the tech artist decided. And so that's how you pose the arm. You start from that shoulder, and then you go to the end and get your arm in whatever pose. Like if they're raising their hand, you know, that's how you pose it, right? Now, something to consider is that I kind of lied. I want you guys to realize how awful this pose looks, right? If you raise your hand in real life, I kind of wish I had like a camera on right now for myself, but the arm actually starts from the clavicle, right? The clav controls. Now yours might be on the front. I've seen some around the collarbone. Osri's are on the back. But look at that. You have to use that one first, right? And then you can lower this to a more acceptable range, you know. But that's one of the biggest things I see in student posing go wrong, is that you guys don't use the clavicle at all, and your lines of action get really messed up, because if I lowered this and then raised the arm, just look at that silhouette. It has that like boom, it's just jagged. But no, our shoulders are so posable, everybody. They're so posable. So whenever you move your arm, just think of it as an extension of that. So if you're leaving the arms by the side, make those clavicles rotate a bit lower, you know. Rotate them a bit lower there. You see that? And then you can get a nice relaxed pose. Versus if we just only use the shoulder. Like, see how this one's like a little bit lower in terms of silhouette. Now her collar kind of hides the clav, so it's a little bit harder to see on this one, but it's very evident on other rigs. But yeah, so you can pose them like that. I would recommend for you guys starting out, you might want to consider. Let me just zero out all of these. You can just highlight all those controls, left click drag to select all X, Y, and Z, type in 0, and then press enter. There you go, back to 0. You guys might want to consider working in IK. So Osri's IK-FK switch is right there. And you'll notice that the control shapes change. That's how you know that you're in the different arm. And if you recall, Osri's wrists do not move. The tech artist has locked those down, which is very nice for us. And right here, you can notice that this wrist is movable. That means that this is an IK. I find IK to be very intuitive when you're first working with the model. The only thing you have to worry about is that you don't move outside of the bounds and hyperextend that that limb. You see that? See how it's hyperextending? You really want to avoid that. It's also really easy to get poppy animation, so you need to make sure that like this elbow does not pop when you're animating this. But other than that, I love animating in IK. It feels like I'm working with like a puppet, right? It feels very puppet-like. So you just pose the hand right where you need it, and then you pose the elbow. Okay. Now, there's some things that it's like worse at. Like if I was just doing a regular walk cycle that's looping, I'd probably use FK because it's just nice to work with rotation for something like that. But if I'm doing any sort of like emoting with my hands, you know, for like a lip sync or something, I'm gonna be using IK. I much prefer it for that. So yeah, so that's just a little thing about the arms, and you just have to remember that clav whenever you're posing it. Okay. Okay. And then the last thing is the head and neck controls. Very similar to the spine in that they have like multiple controls there. Something that you might want to enable though is based on the rotation. See, as I rotate Osri, she just kind of robotically aims forward, right? That is fine if you're okay with kind of counter animating the posing of her, right? It's fine if you're okay with doing that. On the other hand, I like working in world space for this. So no matter where I rotate my character, she's always facing forward. That's a huge thing. I love that because if you're walking, you need a subtle twist in the torso as you take each step, right? You need a subtle twist, and this prevents you from doing a lot of counter animating, because if I was working in local space, she would be facing off to screen right, and then I'd need to select her head, I'd need to select her neck as well, and then rotate all of those at the same time. And it's a little bit tiresome to do that every single time. So I really recommend working in world space, parent world. This parameter is on a lot of rigs as well. So on advanced skeleton ones, I think it's called like follow or something, and you'll see that it can follow the chest, it can follow the main control, it can follow the world, right? So you get a lot of options in there. Let's see if Osri follows the main control though. Yeah, perfect. Okay, yeah. So I recommend working in world for the head. Other than that, yeah, it's a lot of personal preference. You'll notice that the pull vectors for the legs, they follow the foot by default for this character. That's not true for every character. So sometimes if you're moving the legs and you need to get a different pose, you might need to grab the pull vector for the knees as well. Okay. All right, so that's our little breakdown of like how to use these characters. Now let's set up our scene and set up some extra parameters here to make things a little bit easier for us, okay? So, first things first, we have Osri in the scene. But look, as I'm already doing the example, it's already getting a little bit difficult. All right, so let's move her over here. This scene has a little bit of geometry in it, right? So that's going to be really annoying to mess with. Okay, so anytime that you're starting an animation scene, I really recommend going through and selecting all of the background, just every single shape in there. We have a bunch of other shapes too. These might just be empty. These might just be empty nodes from when I was modeling. It most likely is. Let's see. I'm just gonna keep drag selecting just to make sure I get everything in there. All right. So once you have that selected, just add, create a new layer in your display layers. Now, all of those objects just got slotted, I believe, under layer 2. Yeah. So I can turn those off and on. I can also double click them to make it a reference layer. So I can no longer mess around with those. Right? I would also recommend, if your scene is at the wrong size, see how Osri's a little bit small, perhaps? Maybe not. Not too bad of a size. Instead of, like, a lot of people's first instinct is, oh, I'll just scale my character. Don't freaking do that, dude. Your character has so much math going on behind the scenes. Like, you can be doing, like, distance calculations on some of these nodes, and then that's not getting affected by the scale transform. There's so many things that could be going wrong with that. So, oh, and, like, once again, Osri does not let you scale. Oh, wait, maybe. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, wait, no, that looks like pretty locked down. Okay, good, good. Good, good, good. You don't want to scale the rig, okay? Let me just select the objects in this layer. There we go. And instead, it is much easier to Control G or Command G to group your selection, and then scale this down if it's too big, you know? You can just scale that however, to whatever size you want. Man, my scale's going real slow for some reason. Strange. So we can make that a little bit smaller. Now Osri is going to be a more reasonable size. Sorry, I got the wrong control there. That looked like some sort of collider control. I don't know what that's for. Osri has some secrets apparently, but yeah. So there we go. So now we have our character sized correctly for the scene. Okay, and then the scene is on this layer. You can also double click this layer and just name it environment. And it is on reference mode, so we cannot click it. Very good. Another very important thing to do before we get to animating is set up our selection masks. Our selection masks are up here. Right now, we can select anything in Maya, and that's very, very dangerous for an animator to do. So every animator, pay attention. Boom, turn off joints. A tech artist will murder you if you start selecting their joints. Turn off your IK handles. Usually the tech artist has made the IK handle part of the rig, so you're just moving the controls. You don't need to worry about the IK handle itself. Turn off polygonal objects. You don't want to accidentally select Osri's mesh. Not that you can. This one's very nice, but some rigs you can just select the mesh immediately and mess it up. Let's turn off selecting deformation objects. Those can be used in rigs, and you don't want to select the actual, parts that are moving the model. You only want to move the controls as the animator. Dynamic objects, turn that off. Leave this one on. This for cameras, rendering objects, So you want to control your camera, so leave that enabled. And leave this one enabled too. That's what we use for locators. Locators might be needed to save your animation at some point if you mess something up. I'm going to swap this one over to IK as well, just so we have that. And then I'm going to go into these, and now look, I can drag select with this selection mask up here. And I don't have to worry about accidentally selecting the wrong thing. Also, if you're having trouble finding these options, they're underneath this. Sorry about that. They might be hidden by default. So there we go. And then I'm gonna zero out all these channels and press enter, and that brings Osri back to the default state in there. Very cool. So we have that set up. Now some other things. Locate your fingers. Okay. Fingers are going to be something that's very annoying to move around, and let's expose those. So Osri has hidden the finger controls. See, in our display layers, Osri has them hidden. Your rig might have them hidden as well. Sometimes they hide them as like a channel underneath the main control or something, or like there might be some sort of gear icon near the head, and then it will have a bunch of controls in the channel box for that, and you can like enable finger control visibility, that sort of stuff. So a lot of rigs have something like that. So Osri has some nice cool controls where you can like rotate the metacarpals of the hand. I would say it's not as necessary. So if you wanna leave those out of this next step, then go for it. But something that's really annoying is selecting a bunch of these controls over and over, right? You're going to be posing the hand. You're going to need to select all the hand a bunch of times. Now, some rigs come with a script that has a picker, is what they call it, like a selector or something, But they usually call it picker because it's just picking the object you want to move. And might as well just go into one of these shelves that I'm not really using. But to create your own fast way of selecting these. You can go in and just select manually all of these joints, or sorry, all these controls for the fingers right here. And then let's go into that. There we go. And that took like not very much time, but imagine doing that for like every single pose of the hand. Like that's gonna be torturous, right? So instead, what if we just do it once, and then we go to create, set, quick select set, and we'll call this Oz left hand. And then we can do add to shelf. You'll notice that it also assigned it in our outliner, right? So this is the actual set itself, and you can just select it that way, or with that nice little button, you can just click that, and then it selects them all. And then we can get a nice like relaxed pose to the hand. I recommend studying people's hand posing as you're walking around. You'll learn a lot about how people hold their hands and like what it says about their like mental state, you know. But usually we have just a nice cascading rotation to these hands like that, and then usually the thumb is also a little bit rotated. So Osri does have a bit weird of a thumb because her axes are a little bit different. Like notice how the Z-axis rotates like that for the thumb tip, but then this one rotates like that. That's the only weird thing that I've really noticed on this rig. Very cool rig. So that's how you create a quick select set. I recommend creating one for the right hand as well. Let me just get all of this in here. Beep, bop, bop, boop. There we go. Select all these guys and these guys too, and then create. Set, quick select set. And let's call this Oz right fingers. I'm going to do add to shelf. And then whenever I click that button, boom, gets that back. Another nice thing to have on all of these would be your IK controls. So grab your feet, grab your waist, grab your hands, and your elbows. And then do create, set, quick select set, and call this Oz IK. Add to shelf. Now, I'll show you why we're going to do that in a second, but I think for one video, this is a good amount of setup. The only last things that we need to do are get our reference to be correct. I have downloaded my reference, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to open it with keyframe MP. Find any sort of video editor that you want for, or not video editor, but like video player that can let you advance your the playback by 1 frame. And so this is my reference.
You're set.
And we can see, boom, I do a little jump. There we go, right? So that's what I'm going to try to be animating here. And it's just important to be able to scrub frame by frame, because our technique that we're going to use for this is going to be to essentially copy the timing. When you guys are starting out, I really want you to observe that reference frame by frame. So that's why it's important to be able to scrub by 1. You'll notice a bit of a problem though. Let me pop open Adobe Media Encoder, because you'll notice down in the bottom right here, 29.98 FPS. A lot of phones are going to be recording in 30 FPS. I'm just kind of rounding it because it's very close to that number. But a lot of phones are going to be recording in 30 FPS. This is a problem because if you just straight up take that timing into Maya, you'll notice that Maya is animating at well, it should be, sorry, I was just doing some video game animation. Usually that's at 30 FPS. You'll want to keep this at 24 FPS when you're animating for film. So you're going to get a discrepancy if you're counting the frames and applying that. It's going to be small, but it will look like a little bit slower motion in Maya, because it's a lower frame rate there, right? So if your video is in 30 FPS, pop open Adobe Media Encoder. You can also use like Premiere and stuff as well, but we don't need to do like a bunch of editing to this or anything, right? So might be a little bit extraneous to use something like that, but if you have another tool for this, that's also fine. Handbrake might be a good one for this too. My gosh, this is going real slow though. So sorry, bear with me while this opens up. Finished loading plugins, very cool. And there we go. Oh, we're probably gonna need to close this down. Boop. And I'm going to remove this from the queue. And I'm gonna find that file right there, right? This one's in 30 FPS. I'm gonna drag it in to the queue, and it imports it, right? Now, we're gonna use a preset, right? See how this preset is automatically 1080p, you know, HD, but look at the FPS in there. If I hover off, you're gonna miss it, but it says 29.97 FPS in there. Oh, we don't want that, right? We don't want that. So, let's click that. And in here, where it says frame rate, uncheck that and make this 24 FPS. And then let's do okay. And we could, I think everything else is fine. I'm gonna do okay there. And then notice that it's not a preset anymore, it's a custom. And there you go, 24 FPS, perfect. Now let's change where it's gonna output that. Let's call it like jump reference 24 FPS. And it's fine that it's in my downloads or whatever. I should put that in my Maya folder as well. And then when you press play, see, it's resampling that entire video right there. So now it's the same video, but it has gone through and changed the frame rate. Okay, so now when I can close this program, don't need to have that hogging up my resources. I can go in, right click, I'm gonna open with keyframe MP. Again, you can use anything that just lets you scrub frame by frame. That's the most important thing. And look at there, 24 FPS. So you might have gotten some like compression on there if you want the original video in its like full definition. Use the unedited one, I guess, if you're like putting it in a showreel or something, and then just make sure it's still at the proper frame rate when you export. But yeah, so this is looking great, and this is gonna be my reference. So when I'm working, I can't stream both of my monitors at once, but if you're working on multiple monitors, I really recommend it because you can keep your reference on one and then your scene on the other. I might need to crop down my window a little bit. Like I'm gonna need to shrink this a bit, and then let's go to the top corner and let's just shrink that a little bit this direction and grow it that way. And then I can have my graph editor open in the bottom left as well. I know it's getting a little bit cramped, but hey, that's what animation takes sometimes, you know. So there we go. That is our setup. We are now ready to start animating. So let's split that into another video. Okay, so let's stop that right there. Thanks for watching, y'all.